And cool.
Beautiful. Okay, Robert.
We are
Yeah.
kind of live, but you know, pre-recorded Zoom conversation.
Good.
Laraaji, if I didn't butcher it, I probably did. I apologize.
No, that's good.
But,
that's great. That's wonderful.
Sir, I mean, where does your I guess the logistical a logical starting point of this conversation? Where does your journey begin? Your musical journey begin, and your creative journey begin, and how did you kind of transform to kind of transcend? You know, I might butcher some words, but like more like kind of the spiritual kind of route, I guess.
Yes, a spiritual journey of listening to music in the school systems. The school systems here, in Perth Amboy, New Jersey, promoted music in children very early, and also the church, Christian church, where Perth Amboy, New Jersey, I was exposed to music through radio. So church, radio, and school, I was inundated with music. Music is just a staple in my diet when I was very young. The school system promoted early learning on something called the tonet or a fife. It's a black instrument, closed-in flute, which was the early years. In the fourth grade, I believe. In the fifth grade, we were offered the opportunity to explore. I was invited to explore the violin. And so I took to the violin. And then right after that, a year or so, the piano. So I was doing piano and violin and playing violin in the school orchestras eventually, and up into high school. So trombone in the marching band, violin in the school orchestra, voice in the school choir, voice in the church choir.
Wow.
And doo-wop on the corners in my neighborhood. You know what doo-wop is?
Yeah.
Doo-wop, yeah, doo-wop. And so Frankie Lyman and the Teenagers, Fats Domino, the Beatles in my early years of radio listening. So a world of music. Plus I loved to dance as a teenager. So dance music, pop, R&B was filling me up. I love the classics too. The drama, the deepness of classical music I was exposed to very early. And also the cinema. My mother was great for taking us children to the movies on weekends. And though I grew fond of, or was very impressed by cinematic scores, and plus you listen to a cinematic score in a large auditorium with spacious speakers. So that grand orchestral, expansive, orchestrated sound impacted me very young in the early years. And after high school, I went on to Howard University School of Music and studied theory and composition and piano. And that gave me a sense of being less of a trespasser in the world of music. I knew I wanted to be a composer. I wanted to take all these musical ideas and influences that have impacted me and spin them back out into new form. So that I had the piano, the violin, my voice. And through college, I did explore classics much deeper, classic Western classical music. And after college, coming to New York to pursue both comedy and music, I was exposed to otherworldly music like gamelan, Javanese and the Balinese gamelan music, Hungarian female choir music, Latin music, music from Brazil, avant-garde jazz here in New York City. And during the early 70s, I began exploring meditation, deep meditation. And well, as an experiment, I was curious about what it had to offer me, if anything. And to my surprise, meditation opened up my ability to hear paranormally, to hear music on a more present time frequency. And some of the cultures relate to this music as music of the spheres or nadam or cosmic sound current. In the 1970s, mid 1970s, during a meditation sitting, I attracted a very intense cosmic hearing experience of this music, which impressed me with the ability of consciousness to be in eternal present time, and consciousness to actually directly feel the unity of the whole universe in present time. So I was pretty impacted by that experience. I knew it wasn't something I could write down or record, but it gave me a new sense of direction in which to use music as a tool to send awareness back into like cosmic memory of the place where all is one and eternal present time is the only real time or timelessness. After that experience, I began exploring, aside from the piano and the Fender Rhodes keyboard, which I was playing in a jazz rock band back then, I began exploring open tune electric zither, not making the connection that that was the instrument that would help me to reference this otherworldly sound I had heard. So around 1974 to 1978, I was developing this electronic auto harp sound that was allowing me to reference and to represent the experiences I was having in meditation. So 1978, I had developed enough of a vocabulary, a new vocabulary on this new musical sound, the electric zither, that I was playing on the sidewalks of Brooklyn and Manhattan, in the parks and the plazas by the museums, with this electronic zither sound that I was bringing forth through an improvisation, meditation improvisation. And the music led to my being invited to play for yoga studios, expos, street festivals. And eventually I was heard by Brian Eno while I was doing this explorational, experimental meditation musical mission in Washington Square Park, Greenwich Village, 1978. And Brian left me a message in my zither case because my eyes were closed and I usually stayed in semi-trance during performance. So after the performance, I read his note. I was impressed that it was Brian Eno's note in my zither case. A month after someone else had advised me to go check out Fripp and Eno's music on the media because they felt there was some connection between what I was doing musically and what they were recording. So here I am with Brian Eno's phone number in my hand. I give him a call, and the next day I go visit him in the village. And we had a very warm, friendly meeting, and he went through a series of world topics and issues and came around to the subject of ambient music. And I really hadn't heard that term before, except the month before when the kind people tried to explain what the music was about Fripp and Eno. So here we are talking about ambient music, and Brian was trying to say it's sort of music that you're in the space with. It's not necessarily the foreground, is not trying to demand attention, but it provides a field or an environment within which a person can think, be, float, and we're not necessarily being dominated by the presence of the music. So I felt like I could go into a studio and improvise with something that would come out relative to what he was trying to explain.
Yeah.
So we went into a studio shortly thereafter in New York City, in the village, and recorded the first part of Day of Radiance, the hammered zither side. 6 months later, we recorded the softer meditation side in a more quiet-oriented studio. And so the album was completed in about 6 or 7 months, released on EG Records. And I remember that Brian allowed me the pleasure of even participating in the design of the album cover. Yeah, that was very cool. So the album was released. That was the second LP that I released, but this one was the one that kind of put me on the global map of listeners. The first album was Celestial Vibration, and that was a locally distributed album. And it was during the time I was really busking or playing music on the sidewalks of New York. And all of this music, even since the day of Radiance, music that generally capitalizes on what the street performance model of performance, performing for the continuously evolving or changing audience. So it's a music of staying in the present time without necessarily having a beginning or an end, but more of a vibrational sound bath. So the listener can step into that field and be bathed without necessarily listening for a melody line or an ending or a closing. Sometimes I refer to this as vertical music, music that isn't about linear time or linear space, linear distance, or linear size. So with that album release, somewhere in 1985, I was still performing workshops in local United States consciousness conferences. One of my classes was called Connecting with the Inner Healer Through Music. So the idea of music ability to lift consciousness above the mundane, above the personal local reality, in order for the consciousness to witness an eternal unified field right here and right now, impressed me. It was the seed of my vision to do music or play music that would have this kind of impact on the listener. At the time, I didn't call it trance, but later on in years of meditative and yogic study, I've discovered that the word trance or altered state, and even psychedelic states, became more useful in describing the direction my music tends to go. And I believe that this is a gift that I can give to listeners who might be kind of stuck in one dimension or one frequency of consciousness and think that that's all there is to their life. That music can help someone to experience bliss and ecstasy, joy, resolution, and deep relaxation in the midst of the world journey. So the sound can be used like that. Music, whether it's called healing or not, artists who don't call themselves healers may have the gift of improvising musical sound that is like a balm or medication for listeners in their own particular tribe or worldly following. But at the present time, I haven't been performing live in venues. I've been performing more on internet, Zoom and other high fidelity broadcast formats. And this has been wonderful because I miss the traveling. I don't miss the airplane part.
Yeah.
I do appreciate the ability of doing live concerts from home because it allows me to include more instrumentation than I tend to include on tour. And that has been a wonderful experience to finally be a one-person orchestra and deliver that sound experience through high fidelity media from home to others who are at home too. So they're in a very relaxed place to really absorb the musical experience.
May I ask, does that energy transfer over this medium, say Zoom? Does that, like, the I guess sound waves kind of transfer across the internet and resonate with the viewer or listener, as well as in live performance, I guess, if that makes sense, I guess.
Yes, because you would say essentially a live performance, electronica, artists would be on stage and their sound would be dependent upon the transmission through mics and line in out through high fidelity speakers. And at home, hopefully, if the listener has high fidelity speakers or high fidelity headphones, I would say that they're receiving the equal situation, that they're depending on electronic transmission, assuming that the transmission by way of satellite or optic fibers does a just job in transmitting the sound. But I think it does, because many production projects today depend upon transferring sound by way of the internet. And it's a sound that is used in producing your high quality LPs and listening experiences. So I would say that what your question, that the live audience in the venue and the live audience at home are hearing or have access to the same quality of hearing experience. Now, whether the live audience in the venue also feels the shared listening experience, which enters into the psychological uplifting impact of the experience. You're listening, it's a group shared listening experience. At home, I would say the listener has the opportunity of coming into their internal and listening as though they're in their private sanctuary. So that kind of listening experience might allow the listener to really become absorbed in the sense of a unified singularity or unified oneness. In other words, that the music would allow the listener to be more inward. Deep listening is what I tend to call those kind of experiences, deep listening experiences. As opposed to an audience, live audience, there is some amount of distraction, or it could be a support. The idea of whether you're concerned about the placement of the speakers, or somebody's cowboy hat in front of you is blocking your access.
Yeah. That is true too. Yeah. And I've always I've been in the last few years diving into the power of sound and healing for myself. It's wonderful. But I'm curious, like, where's that? How? I guess I'm curious how it works, and like, why is it so effective? I guess, and what energies, what is it tapping into? I guess the archaic kind of. Is there this universal energy you can tap into with sound, I guess, or?
Well, that is a very essential question of why and how does sound work? How does it heal? And is it connected to a cosmic situation? All of that, my understanding, and I've proven it for myself, that sound works through suggestion. The power of sound works through suggestion. That through suggestion, we can impact the sympathetic resonance, a sympathetic response within a listener. For instance, if I were to play music that, for me at the time I'm performing, I'm actually contemplating the energy of water, the movement of water, the texture of water, the kinesthetic properties of water, and I allow that to transmit itself into my music, the listener should receive something like a very loose, fluid, buoyant experience, a flowingness. And a sense of flowingness can be considered a healing energy to transmit flowingness. Also, during my musical performance, I can feel a suggestion of deep calm, universal equilibrium, which helps the listener to release from subconscious stress patterns. So suggestions in the music. A music can be a drone, musical drones, whether it's a harmonic pad drone or a single tone drone, can suggest eternal stability, eternal equilibrium, eternal connectedness. And this is considered a medicinal suggestion to someone who might feel disoriented, discombobulated, conflicted. So music through suggestions can suggest calm, integration, connectivity, flowingness. It can suggest the openness of breath. Music can jam the breath too, if it's frenetic music. So music, in addition to being able to transmit suggestions of wholeness, balance, equilibrium, and nurturing, and calm, and happiness, it can also suggest conflict, congestion, resistance.
Mm.
The cosmic music, or the cosmic field, however we look at it, we call it the universal field or the omnipresent field. But the oneness is said to, and I agree with, to be vibration, a constant vibration at the molecular atomic level, at the pranic level.
Mm.
The field is in continuous vibration. And the yogis and spiritual teachers and the experimentalists who have dived into the more present format of consciousness picks up on this music, this continuous sound, hum, this cosmic sound current.
Mm.
And it is this place that yoga traditions focus on. A yoga practice may be an hour and a half, and the final posture in the yoga postures are usually called the corpse pose or the shavasana, if you're familiar with it. And that's the pose where at the end of the yoga class, the student is lying flat on their backs. They're breathing very released, and their mental space is very relaxed from processing their personal life story.
Mm.
And it is in this place, in the shavasana posture, that the student, the practitioner, the spiritual athlete connects with their most natural state of meditation, contemplation, and hearing this cosmic presence. Being aware of the cosmic is simultaneously attended by hearing the sound of the cosmos. This sound is forever present. It has no ending or beginning. And if one looks up the term nadam, N like in Nancy, A, D like in David, A, M like in Mary, Google it, and you'll come up with references to the universal presence, yoga, cosmic hearing, the sound of the infinite moment. And this, to me, is the primal sound that, if as a musician, I can bring a listener to the place of being immersed in that inner sound, that is the ultimate healing. For I think healing is not focused on sickness or disease. The true healing is focused within the moment of wholeness, of the oneness. That we heal wholeness. We don't heal sickness. My attitude. you don't fix sick. You don't fix a disease. What you do is you fix yourself within the moment of knowingness. True healing is about remembering wholeness, remembering the fluidity. For flowingness is the state within which it's impossible to perceive separation.
Mm.
And so constant flowingness, which is the universal sound, is the medicine, being in flow. So music that can transmit or suggest a state of flowingness, continuous flowingness, a circle sound, flowing now sound, a river sound, a breath connected sound, continuous flowing. Because in the flowing state, because it's impossible to perceive separation, the most natural perception of oneness is available to the practitioner. So in the concept of music is one medium which is easy to suggest continuous flowingness, whether you're intending in your music to be healing or not. You can start a musical composition or a musical improvisation and go for hours. And so the idea of flowingness, unbroken, constant continuity is available to the performer. The conscious, mindful musician, the musician who's stepping upon the platform of New Age demand. The demand in this new age is for music to serve a new, more expanded psychological social function. And that is, music is to provide the listener with a soundscape or a sound bath that allows the listener to escape into the present moment, where you can call this into the house of the divine, into the soul presence, into the eternal present moment, and to hang out here, to be here now, as Baba Ram Dass once said, be here now. Music that, and even art that can help the listener to sustain present time, emotion, and immersion. And this, I think, is the balm in this age, balm. So once again, I feel the music that I've been inspired to create, produce, and record addresses this, I'd say, the new age, to provide a way for listeners' consciousness to breathe, to open, to feel safe and secure in the midst of the way the world out of drama is unfolding.
Now, vice versa regarding the listener. Does the listener have to be in a mindset to, in an open state to receive that type of flow? Since the artists themselves are receptive to that flow, but the listener, if say a first-time listener, does that person have to be in just a receptive mindset to really get those energies from the music, I guess? If
Yes, that's very perceptive of you, Robert. Yes, because if the listener is not perceptive, the listener could go to sleep, get bored, yawn.
Yes.
Go to the refrigerator, grab another cold one.
Yeah, exactly.
But so it's up to the performer. Well, I have found out that if the performer is strong enough, immersed in the transcendental, their music, the first note will be intoxicating enough to draw a listener out of the external stream and into the internal. So, but in some cases, the performer has to guide the listener into that place by opening with maybe frenetic music or music that sounds rather raucous or rajasic or just very scattered. And that's way, as Napoleon Hill says, you get in touch with your customer or your client first at that level, and then you walk them into the zone. You start out with depending on the situation, the artist learns to read their space. Some artists, their entire musical agenda is spontaneous, so that they can afford the luxury of playing to their audience, of feeling where they are. In my cases, I work people who are lying on floors with blindfolds, and they've been relaxed through some yoga, laughter, some yogic breathing. So they're in the best place to feel a more transcendental, serene musical presence. If I'm playing in a wedding or playing in a place where alcohol is being served, I take that into consideration of where the bodies are. If the bodies want to release more physical energy, then we work on dance music or up energy music, and then come into the stillness zone. So the artist becomes more like a chef that sort of bake the cake for the audience they're involved with. On a broadcast level, generally your artists have followings, and the followings know what to expect from the artists.
Yeah.
If you're someone like a Sylvia Nakai or Constance Denby or Stephen Halpern or Jonathan Goldman, then you're familiar where the sound tends to go, a more drone, spiritual, higher worldly kind of free flow music.
Interesting. There's so much I am trying to digest here, so I'm just being perceptive. But man, so I guess like have our minds always been ready, or just have we evolved into this kind of state where we're receptive to sound and in healing in the mind with sound, or do you think our in our primal states as humans that that it was already ingrained, we evolved with that within sorry, I'm
Yeah,
not,
I think those early people probably listened to the wind, the birds, the ripple of water, and the laughter of the tribe. Yeah, and the quietude of the environment, which they probably didn't think of as quiet because they didn't compare it with our modern society of airplanes and rumble of trains and machines.
Yes,
but the within us, I believe, and I depend on it, that there's dormant memory of our unity, our cosmic unity, and that if I present a mirror of this place through music, mirroring an inner place where you are right now, in deep conscious communion with the eternal now and with the unity of all things. And if I do this through the music, and the music is successful in suggesting this to a receptive listener, that place will respond, the place within them. And to answer your question, yes, I believe that everyone has this place within them that can be rapport. You can rapport with this place, and in doing that, you bring that forward. It's on the other side of the coin. You could say I could hold up music of war and batteries and battalions firing away at each other, and this would bring up fear and resistance and trauma. And now, so sound, I believe, can trigger memory of fear or memory of deep euphoric bliss. I believe that many listeners are surprised that they can experience bliss, and when they do, they come back for more of it, whether it means identifying with an artist or identifying with a spiritual teacher who seems to model that inner bliss, that inner state bliss. That it isn't the bliss of the teacher that we want so much as we want the bliss of the teacher to keep igniting the bliss in us that we've forgotten how to remember.
Well, and actually, I've experienced such moments as well through, lots of factors: sound, movements, dance, and community drum circles. Through stuff like that, and and also Reiki. Have you ever? Reiki was amazing. I don't know if you know the practice of Reiki.
Yes, very much so.
It's that doing that every month or on a regular basis has cleanses my energy too. So I've been tapping into that, and
that's wonderful, Robert. That's a higher vibration frequency, energy, light. Yeah, Reiki, universal energy.
Yeah, and actually one time it actually physically felt like I left my body for a minute, and you could see down, myself on the table.
That's understandable. Yes, going into your lighter vibrational body.
Yeah.
So this body out here, it's called the gross body, is that's a vehicle that we use, and then, like you just said, you saw yourself as being able to look at that body as if it were outside of you or beyond you. And the self that you are while you're witnessing, whether you call it the subtle body or the etheric body, is lighter and more expansive, and it's a restful place to be when you can go there it's deep rest, deep release from the dense body, from the gross body and its issues.
Now, how do you, I guess, would this just take years and years of practice of sustaining that, you know, that's that pure bliss stasis, I guess, because, you know, there's been moments of bliss, you know, through those sessions, but then you do, you know, life will give you those difficult times, and how do you maintain that stasis or tap into that spirituality and that energy when you know have all these obstacles, you know, in the dark times, when those dark moments come? How do you fight back and try to stay balanced, I guess?
Well, just a moment. I just got a low battery sign, so I'm gonna I'm gonna plug in my power, and if that means we're gonna be listening in a different way here. Do you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I'm listening by way of the onboard microphone. Okay. All right. So how do you plug in? A couple of words come up to me. Discipline is one. That if you really dig the bliss and want more of it, then you jump into a discipline. Either you find a model who holds that bliss state, whether it's through literature, through online or in person, or your puppy dog or nature. You find the models that say yes to that bliss and you keep them in your agenda. You keep their books handy, you keep their face in your memory. And your discipline is to understand the components of bliss. One of them is breath work. You say frenetic breathing, fear breathing is or anxious breathing has a pattern, but bliss breathing is a slower release, connected breath work. So that's one way. When you learn connected breath work, that's one way of instantly coming back to your bliss through your breath work. Another way is, if one do the discipline, explore the discipline of Tai Chi Chuan, or slow motion meditative movement, or peace meditative walking. To practice this on a daily basis is to keep your memory active of the bliss side of your body. Your body is able to, one, draw you out of anxiety back to bliss. Your breath can do that. You can slow down when you find yourself getting frenetic. Learning also how to focus mentally on positive things, if not color. Color is one way of focusing on color, finding colors that take you into the comfortable bliss zone. And there's use of the voice is very powerful too, that you can, one, tone, whether it's an Om chant, which brings your focus back to the moment, bliss. And also you can listen to your breath when you're silently breathing and it crosses over the back of your throat, to hear that hissy sound, which should trigger an expanded awareness of this high frequency nadam in your brain. So listening to nadam is on the top of the list of how to bring yourself back to bliss. Is you want to bring your consciousness out of over absorption in the linear world theater and bring it back up into the universal present time. Bliss is about present time. Nadam does this, your breath can do it, your body motion can do it if you learn how to use your body. Let's say you're in the midst of a chaotic situation in a public setting. If you know how to bring your body and to sculpt Tai Chi Chuan, in other words, bring your focus back to the Chi energy field where you are. You can soften your body and soften your breathing in the midst of an otherwise chaotic situation. So the word discipline, finding disciplines that you practice so that you can click on it in the instant you need it, or if you're not in there all the time, so you can walk, through the valley of the shadow of death and fear no evil, Robert, for thou art with.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. There's so much I'm curious about, but and I actually have to really dedicate myself to a more steady discipline and practice myself, because I've noticed I'll do it and then it kind of float away, but I'm like I try to bring myself back. So it really does take a really disciplined mindset to practice every day, no matter if it's breathing technique, meditation, yoga, sounds healing, sound bath healing, and just be surrounded too in an environmental space, physical and environmental happy space, I guess, right? It just takes, I guess it sounds like it just takes really a conscious effort to get there and really dedicate yourself to that practice.
It does that, either that or a good kick in the boot.
Yeah.
I had a good kick in the boot early in the 70s when I started to notice that I could be more successful as an actor, but I was comfortable about what social messages I want to communicate through my art form. And then I felt, gee, I needed to look into meditation. That was the kick in the boot, having a part in a movie called Putney Swope and realizing that, hey, do I want to go further in the mass media without having a strong spiritual grounding? And that's when I started exploring meditation and yoga. And there I felt compelled. That was a kick in the boot that hey, I've got to get this under my belt very fast. So that was the inspiration. Also, having a community, whether it's personal friends or an actual spiritual community, where you can go and spend a few days or a week and be immersed in the big yes, where they say yes to meditation, yes to going in, yes to conscious breathing, yes to conscious lifestyle.
The big yes. So it sounds like you have to be surrounded by like-minded individuals who are committed to
especially at the beginning when you're learning how to crawl and walk on your spiritual path.
Well, I was gonna kind of wrap in, like back in the 70s. Did you find that group and community, or did you have a specific kind of like a master you linked up with it? How did you kind of really tap into? How do you learn and really evolve at that point?
Well, that's your question. The answer is that yes, in the 1970s, I found the group called Religious Mind Science in New York. And I would go to them on noon times. On weekdays, they would have sessions. And then on the weekends, there was at Alice Tully Hall, there was a Mind Science Sunday lecture. So I found that group and I found that their mental atmosphere was very, very supportive of where I wanted to go. And the material, the mind science material and metaphysical books that were available at the bookstores were added extra presence to the tribe of like-minded beings. So that was very necessary at that time. And I took advantage of it.
Oh, yeah. I guess, so I guess coming back to the present, you have a new project out, correct? The Circle of Celebration. Is that correct? Or
yes, Circle of Celebration now. It looks like it says noose.
Yeah, no, I did look like that, but
another way of saying now. So for some reason, the word noose doesn't sit well for me.
Yeah.
Now. New. Oh, this will be an ongoing conversation.
Well, can you just touch base, speak upon the new project and if any, like how you built upon your previous work to get to this album or this project?
One thing that I always do a lot of is jam. And somebody will say, come on over and let's jam, or come to my recording studio. We're doing a project where you sit in and jam, or sit in and just add some energy. This project started that way, working with Christopher Bono, who put this project together and initially as an open musician coming together and exploring and experimenting. The word experiment is key in his intention. Experimental situations and see what comes. About 4 or 5 years ago, many musicians came together at a church, church converted into a massive recording studio in Woodstock. And I didn't know what to expect. So I was there with R.G. Osiananda. We just came to the studio, set up our instruments, and dived into spontaneity for about 3 or 4, maybe 5 hours. And it was recorded high fidelity. And I had no idea what was recorded or what we did until years later, when Christopher had finally done the homework of mixing all this together, exposed some of the tracks to us. And we, Dreamland Studios, 2014. The mixes, he asked me to come up with titles for them, and I felt it was appropriate to use art. To the responsibility of artists in this age is to relate to the age they're in. And the age we're in right now, many people are having difficulty with accepting the positivity of what we're going through, and helping listeners, people to maintain a high positivity, that this is a transition time. We're leaving a cocoon going into the butterfly stage. Chaos of the cocoon and the anxiety about flying new wings that we've never tested before. So the music and the album, I thought, would address the sense of, one, people feel disconnected at a time like this. And so that the word circle should be promoted. The idea that we're a circle, connected, no breaks in the circle. And celebration is one of the higher forms of success that is beyond asking for anything. It's celebration is a suggestion that we've gotten everything we need and we're a place of contentment and joy. So the Circle of Celebration was a title we decided was appropriate. And it does reflect the energy that we were using at that time in the Dreamland studio. And the other titles are titles to help maintain a positivity, a sense of connection, hope, and vision. Maybe Christopher went into the studio several times to retweak the tracks, but I'm very impressed with the way he brought the sequence together. And the energy of the music is a continuous ride. My instrument is electric zither, and it usually stays in one tuning throughout a session unless I bring more than one zither. So that the continuity of the harmonic field throughout the entire album is a unified field, a circle of connectedness.
And now, where can we listeners check it out on SoundCloud, on the internet, or are there physical LPs out as well?
No physical. Spotify is the main place one can hear it. Going into Circle of Celebration, there are about, I don't know, 14 tracks. Other mediums, Bandcamp, but those are the two places they can. There are no hard copies yet, so streaming, which seems more to my liking, because the streaming you can listen to. It's almost like 2 hours. One can listen to this album. When you have an album on vinyl hard copy, you have to do, you know what? Get up 5 minutes and turn it over, or have the dog or the cat turn it over.
That's true. um, yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's like, yeah, with a physical album, vinyl, yeah, you do have to turn it over. You can't do that continuous stream of the
Yeah.
music or the album.
To me, the album is a more trance-inducing, and to get up every 25 minutes and turn over an album, to me, you can do it in trance. That's a discipline too, knowing how to make every movement, everything you do in a trance consciousness way. You can do that getting up from the bed and going to the turntable, turning it over and putting it down and coming back, and noticing that the dog or cat has taken your spot.
And actually, are you continuing? I noticed you were running laughter workshops, or do you
Yes,
still do that? Or
yeah, laughter workshops. They're more like play shops.
oh, okay.
They are an opportunity for people to reconnect to laughter that they've forgotten, or people who just like to laugh and want to be in a laughter-friendly environment. It's focused on having people use their physical voice and the psychological energy of your intention to stimulate areas within the body. So it's an inwardly laughing play shop, which is new for many people. When you laugh, your voice vibrates your innards. But this workshop, we do it mindfully, from the head through the throat, the heart, the abdomen, the lungs, the spine. And the one object is to get people familiar with their ability to get their own laughter up, and to use this as a morning exercise to improvise your laughter in the morning for 15 minutes before getting out of bed. And we suggest initially doing it for 7 days to actually test the power of bringing our laughter back, resurrecting our laughter, and discovering the impact it has on our speaking, singing voice, the impact it has on our ability to hold space for other people's laughter, and the ability to hold space for our own emerging laughter. We're in a situation, a theatrical situation, a social situation, and we want to laugh because it's funny, it's tickling us, but we may want to hold back because we think it's inappropriate. So this laughter is about laughter self-esteem, how to own your laughter. Yes, it's healthy. Yes, you're going to be vulnerable. Yes, it's going to sound silly to somebody. Yes, it's going to bring somebody into their uncomfort zone, but it's you opening and owning your exuberance, your radiance, your life force. Yeah.
Cool. And do people do people kind of sign up for that or reach out to you, or like how do you go through these? How does one, if interested, how would one get involved with the workshop, I guess?
Well, one, I try to keep posted on my low profile website, laraaji.blogspot.com.
Okay.
But throughout the last 2 years, I've been doing them on Zoom and other formats for colleges and festivals. And my booking agency has worked this out so that I do them anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour and a half on Zoom format. And there are none scheduled right now that I know of, laughter, but that I try to post them on my website, Laraaji at laraaji.blogspot.com, or laraaji@yahoo.com if you want to contact me personally. The idea of these workshops is to get people into a place where they can own their own laughter and either go on to create their own form of laughter release play shops.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, oh yeah, no, so much to dive. I must dive deeper into your works there, because I'm in a state where I need to balance out myself. But again,
I could give an example, like one of our, in the chest beneath the breastbone, there's something called the Thymus gland, and it's been called the seat of our immune system. And massaging this gland is difficult because it's beneath the breastbone. And one way of doing it is thumping your thymus. Is an exercise for boosting the immune system And another way is using laughter to thump that same area from the inside out, like
Mm.
Now, what you're hearing is probably somebody laughing. But what I'm doing is I'm intentionally using my voice, physical voice, to thump my thymus in the chest. And so this is where the laughter workshop becomes hilarious, because we're repurposing our laughter for inner work. The outside is going to sound strange to somebody who doesn't know what we're doing.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. Really fascinating stuff there. And Laraaji, I think I'll let you go. And I wouldn't want to take too much more of your time, but it was absolute pleasure talking to you. And once again, I got to go deep into some research on this, because this is fascinating to me myself.
Yeah.
But
I'd like to say one thing about laughter, that there's appropriate laughter. I think in your particular domestic case, that laughter might have to be kind of sublimated to just feeling good, laughing out loud in a place where somebody might be mourning and might not feel like laughter is appropriate. I'll call it mindful laughter.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, sir. Well, on that, I wouldn't want to keep too much more of your time. So it was a pleasure talking to you again. And
thank you for these wonderful questions, Robert. Wow, I feel stimulated.
well, I feel I only went to the surface. I could dive deeper after a bit more deep research. I just this fascinates me, the power of sound and tapping into the spiritual subconscious of our primal selves, I guess, right? But
whoa, yeah. Well, I
yeah.
wish you easy breathing and wonderful guidance. Peace.
Thank you, sir. Peace as well. Take care.